So Donald Trump held his press conference to announce that Space Command would be moving to Huntsville, Alabama. Don't worry, I'm not going to play a ton of clips from it because the beginning was pretty much just him talking about Space Command coming to Alabama, and then everyone taking turns getting on the microphone. Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, everybody just getting up there and praising him to no end and basically just blowing him on national television. I cannot stand the way they go about it because it's always like, Mr. President, thank you so much for this moment. Without your leadership, we wouldn't know how to stick our finger in our ass. It's just the most annoying type of rhetoric that we've ever seen. And so many of us were hoping, and I said in a previous video, I said, I really hope that they hold his feet to the fire and ask him questions about his health. Well, guess who got to ask that question? Guess who got to ask him about the rumors of his health? None other than Peter Doocy from Fox News, who threw him this softball, and then they just made a joke out of the whole thing. Take a look.
About a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see it for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't
see
see
that.
You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. I did numerous shows and also did a number of truths, long truths, and I think pretty poignant truths. No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own, pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active actually over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff.
I'm glad it's
Well, it's fake news. You know, it's just it's so fake. That's why the media has so little credibility. I knew they were saying, like, is he okay? How's he feeling? What's wrong? I said, I just left. And it's also sort of a longer weekend, you know. It's Labor Day weekend, so I would say a lot of people know. I was very active this Labor Day. I had heard that, but I didn't hear it to that extent. Go ahead, Peter.
So yeah, Fox News got that question, and then they just turned it into one big joke. Oh, did you hear, Mr. President? The media said you were dead. And then he got to jump in and chime in with his, well, they're all fake news. We all knew how bad they were. That is not the accountability that we were calling for. But of course, you should not be surprised. Donald Trump will never face the music, and he will never ask the tough questions. And I'd be damned if Fox News is ever going to ask him a tough one. They're put there to purposely throw him the softballs and make a mockery out of all other media, because we no longer have state-ran media. We now have media-ran state. They're all in Donald Trump's back pocket, and they're all there to make him look as good as they can and to completely dodge any and all accountability. And now we really don't know anything about his health other than, you know, I'm fine and it's all fake news, which is what we knew it was going to be the entire time. We even said that. We said that's what he's saying. He's just going to write it off as fake news and everybody will keep moving. I said in the previous video that his supporters aren't worried about his health or concerned about him at all. Really, if you listen to them, they're just telling us that it's all bullshit because they could never entertain the idea that anything could ever be wrong with the guy. But then, of course, we get around to talking about the National Guard and sending the guards into cities. And he was asked, I'm pretty sure it might have been Ducey again, who asked him if he was going to send troops to Chicago. And he said, yes, we're going in. We have to. It's violent there. It's out of control there. Then he goes on to talk about how that Washington, D.C. is just perfect now. I mean, it's a beautiful place now. You can go, take your family. Everything is safe, which is funny because that's exactly the same thing he said back when he was inviting everyone to his parade. It's a great place. Come and be with us. But then when he was trying to distract from the Epstein files, suddenly Washington, D.C. became a hellhole and he had to send in the troops. But when he was asked about sending in the troops to Chicago, I don't want to play the clips and give him any more airtime. I would rather go to Governor Pritzker, who is always there to sum it up so well. And he's right here when he says, we cannot let this become normal. The mainstream media has got to stop normalizing this bullshit. Take a look.
I refuse to pretend that any of this is normal. I refuse to concede that the abject cruelty that we're seeing play out with the execution of Trump and Stephen Miller's policies are okay or justified. I refuse to fall into the pundit trap that demands we sacrifice vital constitutional rights if it's being done in the fake guise of fighting crime. Because, as I said 6 months ago in my State of the State address, any rational person who has spent even the most minimal amount of time studying human history has to ask themselves on one important question. Once they get the citizens of this nation comfortable with the current atrocities committed under the color of law, what comes next?
We have to stop acting like this is normal. We cannot allow this to become normalized and same-washed. We have to call it for what it is. It is the President of the United States terrorizing American citizens on their very streets. There are other ways to go about things. There are other ways to handle things, and Donald Trump never wants to get down to that. He always just wants to go out there and pretend like that everyone is just begging him for help and everyone needs him and he's there to save the day. But what we got to do is continue to hold their feet to the fire and demand the release of the Epstein files. And we don't want a version where his name has been conveniently removed from everything. We want to know the truth, because the American people deserve to know the truth. And this is not a transparent president. He loves to throw that word around. He loves to pretend like that he's transparent. He's not. He never has been. And so we need to get the truth. Whether we'll ever get it or not, I'm going to be realistic with you. I doubt very seriously, as long as Donald Trump's in power, that he'll ever face the music. I really couldn't even see him face the music when he's out of office, because anytime anyone on our side, like Merrick Garland, has ever been supposed to go for the knockout, they always just lay back and let him get back in the game. So I really have no faith that this guy will ever face any accountability. But if you really want to know what this is all about, I always circle back to this, and it makes a lot of people mad when I do, but it's Donald Trump's racism. It just is. And in this next clip from Governor Pritzker, he explains why that Stephen Miller and Trump wants to bring the troops to Chicago now. Take a look.
Reason to believe that Stephen Miller chose the month of September to come to Chicago because of celebrations around Mexican Independence Day that happen here every year. It breaks my heart to report that we have been told ICE will try and disrupt community picnics and peaceful parades. Let's be clear, the terror and cruelty is the point, not the safety of anyone living here.
I can't count the times that a Trump supporter will say, how are they racist? I don't understand. How are they racist? What I don't understand is how anyone could grow up in this country and not realize just how racist this administration is and just what their tactics are all about. It's all about fear, it's all about propaganda, and it's all about distracting from the truth. They're going to do everything they can to distract from the Epstein files. They do not want to talk about that, and there's a good reason. There's a good reason why that Pam Bondi said, oh yeah, I have it, it's on my desk, and then came back and said, wait a minute, no, there's not going to be a phase 2 after all. There's a big reason why she pumped the brakes. And there's a big reason why we're never going to get to the bottom of Trump's health. It's all really working in his favor, though, because if we're talking about his health, we're not talking about Epstein, and that's the main thing that he doesn't want people to talk about. But the victims of Epstein are set to speak in D.C. I'm going to be covering that here on the channel and doing videos on that. Those are the people that we need to hear from. We don't need to be hearing from Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a convicted child sex trafficker. We don't need to be hearing from her. Okay, we don't need transcripts between her and Todd Blanche like it's Sons of Anarchy or Better Call Saul episode. That's not what we need. We're not stupid, and please stop insulting our intelligence. When you send your lawyer to talk with a convicted child sex trafficker and they don't throw Donald Trump under the bus, we all know it's because they're wanting to get a pardon and they're wanting to get out. Of course, she's not going to say anything bad about him because she's playing her hand for her pardon, which she will probably end up getting, and MAGA will be perfectly okay with it. After years of calling us groomers, after years of calling us pedophiles, they are now absolutely going out of their way to cover it all up. So it just goes to show you they never really gave a damn about the victims. And it's going to be really sad to see the way they spin the victims talking in D.C. Mark my words, MAGA will find a way to demonize and vilify those people, and they will always find a way to make a hero out of Donald Trump. And it truly is sickening. But I can go ahead and tell you that anytime Donald Trump holds a press conference, it's just always going to be one big circle jerk from his administration, all praising him, and then him talking about how bad things are, but yet how he's fixing things. And his followers may be willing to jump through the hoops of those mental gymnastics, but we're not. We're always going to be here demanding answers. We're always going to be here demanding truth, and we want to see the Epstein files. This was the thing y'all talked about this entire time. This was MAGA's big talking point. Now, if you can't deliver on it, you're exposing who you really are.